everyone, today we're going to review conics. We'll look over circles, parabolas, ellipses, and hyperbolas. Get ready to unlock the power of math together. Let's dive right in. Okay, so here are the formulas that you're going to need to know. Also, it's good for you to sort of keep these organized so that way you know which formulas are for horizontal axis and which is for vertical. And it's also good for you to know how to find the foci as well. Make sure you look carefully at your formulas so that way you understand what each of the variables represent. So with this parabola, it is on the vertical axis, so we have y equals 1 over 4p, and then x minus h squared plus k. So now let's just write our parabola here. So it was 1 over 4 and then minus 1 here at the end. To find our vertex is h comma k. So our h and our k, that is -2 and then -1. Now, for us to find the focus, remember we're going to look at P, and P is the distance between the vertex and the focus. So to find our focus, we're going to look and connect these two pieces of our formula together. So we have 1 over 4p is equal to 1/4. And if we cross multiply, you're going to get 4p is equal to 4. And then p equals 1. So if we just make a little sketch here of what this parabola is, your vertex here is -2, -1. And if we know p is 1, that is the distance from the vertex to the focus. So that means in the positive direction here, this would be my focus. So my focus would be -2, 0. So now when you want to find the directrix, you're still going to look at P. P is the distance between the vertex and the directrix. And the directrix is just that like dashed line. So distance of 1 still. So here, this is our directrix. And the equation of our directrix is, again, y equals, and then you've got -2. That's the y value there. And then when you look at your axis of symmetry, remember that is if you were to draw yourself, right, that parabola here, axis of symmetry would cut that parabola in half. That's your axis of symmetry. And what that is on the x coordinate of that vertex. So that is going to be x equals and then -2. All right, so here we have a parabola with a vertex of 5, -2. So let's take 5 and then -2. This is going to be our vertex here. Now, this parabola has a directrix at x equals 2. So here is x equals 2. There's our directrix. Now we want to write the equation of this parabola in standard form. So here's the thing that you're going to look at is that your parabola is going to open up in the horizontal direction like that. And that is, again, based off of what you know where your directrix is. Because, again, we cannot have a parabola that opens like this with our directrix being x equals 2. So what we do know and what we can find is the distance, that's P, from the vertex to the directrix. So P is equal to 3. So then what we will use is the formula for our parabola. That is the horizontal axis. It's opening up in the horizontal direction. So you have x equals now, and then 1/4 p, and then y minus k squared plus h. So we know x equals, we know 1 over 4, and then 4 times this p value, that is 12. And then you have y equals, and then remember your vertex was 5, -2. So your 5 is your h, and then the k is that -2. What we're going to do is we're going to put k first, and if it's a -2, it's going to turn to a +2, and then squared, and then our h is going to be that plus and then that 5. So here is our formula for our equation of this parabola. So here with this circle, we're going to see that it's going to pass 2, 2, and then the center is going to be at -1, 2. So remember that is h and k, right? So you have your center at -1, 2, so there's your center. And then you know that your circle has to pass through 2, 2, so that goes here, right? So if you can imagine, right, your circle's going to look something like that, right? All right, so from this information, what we do know is we have our general form for our circle here. What we want to do is we want to find our radius. Now remember that the radius is from the center to the outside of that circle, right, from that point. So that's 1, 2, 3. So that radius right there is going to be 3 squared. You do know your center, and that was, again, the -1 and then the 2. So let's fill in our information. So you have x, and then with your h, it's a minus and negative, so it'll turn into a 1, a +1. And then you have y minus, and then your k is 2. And then we're going to square that. And again, you know that 3 squared is the same thing as 9. So our final equation for this circle is like so. So here we're going to graph the ellipse. What you do need to remember is that your a squared is the bigger number for ellipses. So that is your a squared. This is your b squared. And knowing that the a squared is under the y, this is going to be opening on that vertical axis there. Okay. So let's go ahead and figure out, we've got our h and our k. So let's just go ahead and plot that center first. That is 1, -2. Okay. Now you can find your vertices. Remember the vertices, you're going to look at figuring out what a is. And then if a squared is 25, then a is going to be 5. And it's going to be in the y direction, right? In that vertical direction. And remember, you're going to go both up and down. It's 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So your vertices here are 1 and then 3, and then 1 and -7. Now your co-vertices, like your minor axis, right? So that's b. So if b squared is 16, b is going to be 4, and that's going to be in the x direction. So we're going 4 units to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. So your co-vertices are 5 and then -2, and then -3 and -2. So we can draw our ellipse right there. Now to find our foci, remember that you have c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So you plug in your information, 25 minus 16. C squared is equal to 9. And then your c is going to be plus or minus 3. Now, remember, you always go towards the vertices. It is going to be like on your major axis here. So we're going 3, 1, 2, 3. That's your foci. 1, 2, 3. That is the other one. So you have 1, 1, and then you have 1 and -5. So to help us to write our equation, let's just figure out what information we have. So we have our vertices here at, let's say, -1 and 4 and 7 and 4, right? That is your vertices there. You have your foci at 1, 4 and 5, 4. So when you see this, right, when you see this, this is actually going to be an an indication to you that that's your major axis. So what we're doing is we're looking at the equation of your ellipse on the horizontal axis. So our formula is going to be, we got this squared, we have x, and then a, and then you got your y's, and then you got b squared, and then 1, right? Horizontal means your a squared is going to be underneath that, that x variable, so it's going to come first here. So remember that with your center, it's got to be right in the middle of your foci here. So my center is going to be right here. Now my center is at 3, 4. And then from my center, when I look at my A distance, that A distance is from the center to the vertex. So the center to the vertex, that is A. Now your A is 4. Now when you look at what your C is, right, your C distance is from your center to your focus, which is, again, right here. So that's your little c, and then the c is going to be 2. Now from there, you can figure out what your b is, right? Using your formula here. So you have c squared, and that equals a squared minus b squared. So you've got 2 squared, and then that is equal to, you have 4 squared, and then you have minus b squared. All right, so you have 4 equals 16 minus b squared. You're going to get negative 12 equals negative b squared. You have b squared is going to equal 12. Okay, so you don't need to find the square root of b, right? Because that b squared is just going to go right here in your formula. So as we figure out our equation here, you have x minus our h from our center. Again, that was h and k right there. So that is the minus 3. And then we're going to square it, and we're going to divide that by your a squared. And again, your a squared is 16. And then we are going to add, you have y, and then you have a minus your k, which was 4. And then you are squaring that over your b squared, which is 12, and that equals 1. Okay, so here are information with our hyperbolas. Remember that your a squared always comes first, and then you have b squared here. This is going to be on the horizontal axis, and it's because you have x squared here. Now we can figure out what our center is. Our center is our h and then our k. So remember, our signs are flipped because it's technically x minus h and y minus k. So our center is going to be at negative 2, negative 4. So let's graph that first. Negative 2, negative 4, that's our center. Now to find our vertices, again, we're looking at our a squared. So in order to find a, right, we have 4. And that's going to be in the x direction. So we're going 4 to the right, 4 to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We are also going to go in the b direction, and that's 3 in the y. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now doing this will help you to make that box. So that way you are able to go ahead and do your branches, right? So the important thing is you want to make sure that you can draw your branches correctly. That's why we have this little box, just to help you to keep everything in order here. So now, once you get your box, you can make your asymptotes here. Okay, so you can figure out where your branches go. And we also need to write our coordinates of our vertices. We got negative 6, negative 4, and then 2, negative 4. We are also going to find our foci. So remember, with our foci, here is our formula. It's a squared plus b squared. So in order to find c squared, you've got 16, and then you've got 9. So c is going to be 5. Now again, remember, foci always going towards your vertices, right, kind of on that transverse or that major axis. So we're going 5 in either direction from your center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's your foci. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is also your foci. Now remember, from our vertices, that's how we're going to draw the branches. Our foci is going to be sort of inside the branch that is there. Okay. Now when we have our foci, those coordinates are 3 and -4 and -7 and -4. All right, so here are vertices. We got 5, 2, and then you have 5 and -4. Your foci is at 5, 3, and 5 and -5. All right, so where you know what your vertices are, right? We know that our branch is going to look something like this, right? So this should be an indication to you that your equation that you're going to look at is the one that's on your vertical axis here. So that equation is y minus k squared over a squared. Remember that your a squared always comes first, and then because this is on your vertical axis, you're going to have your y minus k come first instead of the x minus h. So here we have this, b squared is equal to 1. All right, so we're going to find our center. Now our center is going to be in the middle of your vertices here. So your center is right here. There's your center. So your center is at 5 and then -1. Remember that your a is the distance from your center to your vertex. So center to the vertex, that is a, so that is 3 units. And then what we have is c. C is the distance from the center to the focus. So center to the focus, that is c. Now that is 4 units. So we can use our formula here. So you have c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. So you have 16 is equal to 9. And then you get 7 is b squared. Again, you don't have to figure out what b is because we're just going to put b squared right into that formula. So you have your formula as y minus your k value. That becomes a plus 1. And then squared over a squared, which we know is 9. And then we are subtracting x, and then minus your 5, and then over 7, and that is equal to 1. Okay, so in question 8, we're going to find the center and the radius for the circle. What we will need to do is we will need to convert this formula into one of our standard forms from our equations that we know. So the process that we're going to use is called completing the square. So the first thing we want to do is get our similar terms together and then move the constant to the other side. So we're going to put x squared and then a minus 4x together. We're going to leave some space here, and then we're going to get y squared plus 6y, leave some space. We are going to move the constant to the other side, which means what we're going to do is we're going to take this 2 and we're going to add it to the other side. Now, we're going to take half of that first degree and square it there. So that means we're going to take this -4 half and then square it. And that's what I'm going to add here. So what I have is a +4. And then I'm going to take half of that first degree, square it, put that here, and that would be 9. So we added 4 and we added 9 to the left side, so we will also have to add 4 and also add 9 to the right side. Now, we're going to factor the left side and then simplify the right side. So that means we're going to take our terms here. What we have is we've got x minus 2, and that is squared. And then we're going to take these terms and we're going to factor them. So you have y plus 3. And then on the right-hand side, you have 15. So now what we have is our center, and our center is h and then k. So we got 2 and then negative 3. And our radius, this is r squared, so our radius is the square root of that, so square root of 15. Thanks for learning with me today, unlocking the power of math one problem at a time. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future notifications on pre-calc videos. See you in the next lesson.